Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to look and ask the question, did Pokemon make a mistake when they brought Ace Specs back? Now, I'm not talking about the concept of Ace Spec cards. Ace Spec cards are fine, and there are no issues of Ace Specs as a whole. But with Night Wanderer in Japan, which is going to be Shrouded Fable over here, something weird has started to happen. And given that this is the third set featuring Ace Specs, it does make me think, well, hang on a second. Did they get like 2 sets in and be like, oh, mate, we've made a little bit of a mistake here? Now, for those of you that don't know or may have forgotten, Ace Spec cards are trainer cards or special energy. Technically, they've never actually explicitly said they can't be Pokemon, although I just want it on the record that if they are Pokemon, I will be absolutely stunned. But I've gone through the wordings of every press release with a fine-tooth comb over the past couple of days just to make sure there's never anything that explicitly and unequivocally says you can't get Ace Spec Pokemon. I don't think you can, incidentally, but I don't think it's actually specifically excluded. But they are 1 per deck. So no matter what you do, no matter which ones you go for, it is one of the one you choose and no others. They came around starting off in Temporal Forces, then we had them again in Twilight Masquerade, and then the awkward ones are starting to come around in Shrouded Fable. So why am I saying the ones in Shrouded Fable are a little bit awkward? Glad you asked. You see, the first 2 that were revealed had a very interesting piece of text on. They specifically cannot be recovered from the discard pile. Once they are in the discard pile, they will stay there for good and cannot be recovered. So take Pokevital A, for instance. This one's actually kind of funny because it's an item card and it's got the text whereby if it ends up in your discard pile, it cannot be returned to your hand or deck. Both of them are excluded, which does make a really funny interaction with Pokestop because, of course, people think of Pokestop as finding item cards, but what it actually does is discard the item cards and then return the discarded ones to your hand, meaning if this gets discarded with Pokestop, it's not coming back. But of course, this kind of set alarm bells ringing a little bit here, because this was the second one revealed from Night Wanderer, and the first one revealed from Night Wanderer was Neutral Center, incidentally the first Stadium card we've seen as an Ace Spec, and it is a very nice card that basically says, Pokemon that don't have a rule box don't take any damage from attacks from their opponent's Pokemon EX or Pokemon V. Good card. But then it also said specifically on the card as an extra little note at the bottom, if this card is in your discard pile, it can't be put into your hand or back into your deck. Now, when we first saw this, it was a little bit like, well, okay, we're worried about the looping here. We are worried about the fact that somebody might be able to make a deck that could essentially get this Stadium card back again and again and again, and essentially keep it in play for pretty much the whole game, at which point you just can't attack them, and it turns into the classic kind of situation Pokemon would use to ban a card. I have made a deck that doesn't give up prizes, because you can't attack me because of this overpowered Stadium I keep getting back. So this didn't actually ring any alarm bells when we first saw it, because there was an argument that it was just that good. Pokevital A is not just that good. Not compared to similar cards I'm going to show you in a second. It heals 150, and look, 150 is phenomenal healing, don't get me wrong. But I would wager you could take that note off the bottom of the card, and it would still see less play than Scoop Up Cyclone. Now, I don't know, as always, we would need to actually see that, and we're never going to see it to get an accurate representation of how true that is, but I believe that. I believe this is worse than Scoop Up Cyclone, even if you take that text off the bottom. Scoop Up Cyclone lets you pick up a Pokemon and put it into your hand as an item card. No ifs, buts, or maybes, just pick up one of your Pokemon. It's Penny, a supporter card, but it's for any Pokemon, not just basics, and it's an item card, not a supporter, and for what it's worth, Penny sees a bunch of play, and this is better than Penny in multiple regards, inarguably better than Penny in multiple regards. And of course, even if you just ignore the healing for a moment, it lets you reuse cards. If you've got a Luminion on your bench and you have got absolutely nothing going on, you can use it to pick up Luminion, pop it back down, reuse the ability, go and find yourself a supporter card. For instance, there's a cool thing you can do with Ogerpon, for instance. I showed you a quad Ogerpon deck the other day. And what you can do with that is essentially pick up an Ogerpon with a bunch of grass energy on. And then not only have you healed, but you've now got a bunch of grass energy in your hand that you can use Ogerpon's abilities to reattach, one per Ogerpon per turn, while also drawing cards, and actually, in that regard, it becomes a bunch better, and that's my point here. I think Scoop Up Cyclone is just a better card than Pokevital A, but it doesn't have this text. And even if you can look at this and go, wassy, 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 take the text away, Pokevital A is better. And that is a fair argument I know some people are going to make, and that's fine. Is it so much better that Pokevital A should have this restriction and Scoop Up Cyclone shouldn't? I'm not sure. Like, remember when we saw Prime Catcher? It was like the first Ace Spec that we saw from this new run of Ace Specs. And we looked at it and we were like, hang on a second. That's gusting and switching. It's Guzma on an item card. And it's absolutely busted, and it can be recovered. Now, admittedly, I've not seen a huge amount of high-level decks playing this, but something like Darkrai V-Star could be included to give yourself a second use of this at any point during the game. We absolutely have seen Regieleki be put into some decks to reuse this to get you multiple uses of it in especially control decks, where you essentially just keep recovering it so you can keep using it, and then just completely hamstring your opponent with multiple gusting. We have got really good Ace Specs that are going to see a huge amount of play that you can just keep recovering. Hero's Cape, blatantly a great card. Gives you an extra 100 HP. Sees a bunch of play in a bunch of decks. And I know that tools are not the easiest things to recover, okay? But they can be recovered in some instances. Roseanne's Backup would be an example here. Came around in Brilliant Stars, and it does allow you to shuffle a Pokemon tool card from your discard pile into your deck. I'm not saying that everybody's running around playing Roseanne. That's not my point here. My point is that you have the option of doing so. You have the option of using this to recover. Interestingly enough, doesn't apply to item cards, but it does apply to tools, does apply to stadiums, does apply to Pokemon, and does apply to energy. It's a good card, actually. Does not see much play at all, but I fear maybe an underrated card, or maybe just a card where you keep looking at it going, that's cool, there is absolutely no way I'm finding room for that in my deck. The point is, if we look at stuff like Scoop Up Cyclone, we look at stuff like Hero's Cape, we look at stuff like Prime Catcher, they are good Ace Spec cards that see a bunch of play and are absolutely fine to be recovered. And I could kind of understand with Neutral Center, right? I could look at that and go, okay, that could, if you recover it well enough, create a checkmate scenario, and also can be recovered with Roseanne, which is something I've got my eye on, or, would have my eye on if it wasn't specifically prohibited. But I look at this and I'm just like, no. Pokevital A is not on the same level. Pokevital A is a card that made me look up and go, hang on a second, nah mate, I am not taking that, not for a second. I refuse to believe that that is so good that we have to put this on there. And then it's made me think, well, hang on a second, why not just do this for all Ace Specs? Could we see a world, and I don't know, this is an honest question, could we see a world where this actually gets retconned? Where we turn around and see an errata going, all Ace Specs are now unrecoverable. Every Ace Spec, and we can have erratas. Remember, tools used to be item cards. We literally had an errata that just said, tools aren't items anymore. And new tools are printed in a way that reflects that. Old tools were like, just take our word for it, mate, it's fine. They still say item on, but don't worry about it, they're tools now. So I'm sorry, if we can have an errata for every tool, we definitely can have an errata that applies to all Ace Specs. I've seen some people say that there isn't any precedent for that. There absolutely is. Pokémon tools, that is your precedent. And this has made me think this might have just been a case where the designers got a couple of sets in and they were like, we gotta stop this. We have got to stop a situation where these can be recovered. But now we've got a bunch of them that can. And let's face it, the last time we had something like this, a whole one per deck, blah, 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 it was Prism Stars. And Prism Stars, they went to the lost zone. Instead of hitting the discard pile, they went to the lost zone and never came back. Well, because you can't get stuff back from the lost zone, that's kind of the point. So, it feels like this is what Ace Spec should have been all along. I remember they weren't. We had Ace Specs before, like Scoop Up Cyclone is literally just a reprint of old Scoop Up Cyclone. And they were never restricted in this way before. And it did actually become a problem with the trio of cards Life Dew, Puzzle of Time, and Sableye. Puzzle of Time let you recover any cards from your discard pile, and Sableye let you recover item cards, and Life Dew said that you gave up one less prize when KO'd, so what you would essentially do is have Sableye with a Life Dew on, and you would always use Junk Hunt to recover your Puzzle of Time, so anytime your opponent KO'd a Sableye, they wouldn't take a prize. Life Dew would go into the discard, but then you would Puzzle of Time it immediately, so that you weren't just recovering your Life Dew and your opponent every other turn could take a prize. You were recovering Puzzle of Time so they could never take a prize. We literally saw Recoverable Ace Specs be a problem last time around. And we went into this new era of Ace Specs without any kind of protection against it. And then all of a sudden, 3 sets in, Pokemon start making them unrecoverable. I'm just saying, I don't think this is a coincidence. And I think there might have been a change going on in Pokemon where they've gone, you know what? Maybe this should have been the case all the way along. That's my theory, ladies and gentlemen. But now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me if you think some of these recoverable Ace Specs could end up being a problem. Tell me if you think the ones that are unrecoverable are just a couple of exceptions. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely James Siapinski, who's been a supporter of ours for a long time now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.